Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. This is the first part of cross-account access of an S3 bucket. In this part, we will discuss how an EC2 instance from one account will be able to access S3 to a different account securely. The question might rise, why we will do it or what is the use case? So there are multiple use cases for this. If we want to get one snapshot backup in a S3 bucket, or we want to add a central AMI to be accessed, or we want to push some EC2 logs to an S3 bucket in a different account, and many more. So this is very normal that we sometimes need to have an EC2 instance to access S3 bucket in a different account. So let's go and check it out. Here, I'm going to explain what we will do and how we will do. So let's start. So we will do what? We have one S3 bucket in account A and we need to access this bucket with an EC2 instance from account B. So both are the instances or both are the resources are in different account and we want cross account access. What are the use cases for this? Suppose you have one Windows AMI or Linux AMI which you want to access from a different account, then this needs to be set up. If you need to get your backup to be stored in a different S3 bucket, this needs to be set up. If you want your snapshots to be stored in a central S3 bucket, then this needs to be set up. If you want some kind of logs to be taken out from an EC2 instances and stored in an S3 bucket for further processing, this needs to be set up. Now, if you understand the use cases of what needs to be done and why we will do it, then let's move on to the second part and how we will do it. So this is how we will do it. So we have one account, AWS account A, and we have another AWS account B. In my AWS account A, we have one S3 bucket, and AWS account B, we have EC2 instance. So this EC2 instance need to access this S3 bucket for further use cases. Now let's go back to how we will do it. So at first, we will create one instance or one AWS IAM role in account A. That role will have particular bucket policy. In bucket policy, it means this particular node needs to access this bucket and get the object and list the bucket. So this particular policy, this particular permission, we will give to this particular role. And then we need to create this role on an account trust relationship. So what does this mean? So whenever we will create a role, we need to specify what kind of service it will use. So basically, we will not create any kind of EC2 trust permission here. We will create one account permission or account trust relationship role and give it to this particular account trust relationship. And then we will attach it to this particular role. And then this particular role will be assumed by EC2 instance. How? We will create another instance profile role in AWS account B, and that instance profile role will have a policy to assume account A role. And whenever EC2 instance will be spin up, we will attach account B role, that is the instance profile role which has the assume role capability of account A, to this particular instance. And this instance, when it will try to access this S3 bucket, it will assume a account A role and it will get access to this S3 bucket. Simple, right? So we will see all of it in action right now. But don't bother about this bucket policy. So I have just given this bucket policy and I will show you a short demo what this bucket policy does. If you want your bucket to be controlled in a fine-grained way, you can use bucket policy there. I will also show you how to use allow bucket policy and deny bucket policy. So that's all in a nutshell what we will do and how we are going to do it. So let's get started and do some practical, and let's see in action how an EC2 instance actually access an S3 bucket in a cross account basis. Now we see here we have two accounts. One is where the bucket is deployed, this account starting with 3727, and another one where we will launch the EC2 instance, and this account starting with 0609. Now if we look at the picture again, we have this account A where we have our bucket setup. First of all, we have to create one role here with the bucket policy and permission to assume this role by account B. So we go to this particular S3 bucket account and create this role first. So this is my account where I have one sample bucket, and this bucket, inside this bucket, we have one object, image object. And if we see the permissions, right now there is no bucket policy applied. So in this particular account, we will deploy role with the bucket policy and a trust relationship. So we go in this account, we select IAM. Inside IAM, we go roles and we create the role. So here, this is very interesting. While creating the role, we see that while creating account A role, we have to give permission to account B to assume this role. And we will give trust relationship with account basis. So what we have to select here, we have to select AWS account with this particular settings, and it will ask me which account you want to give as trust relationship. I have to choose another AWS account, and here we have to give account ID. I will copy the account ID from other account, paste it here, and then I don't want to select any external ID or MFA token. I just click on next. And for permission policy, I will come back to this one later. Next, and give this a role name. So I have given the role name as bucket role to assume. So this role will be assumed by our account B, and add a tag and then create role. So we have bucket role to assume has been created. Let's go inside this role, and within this role we see the trust relationship is with account. So this is fine. Now we have to give the permission to this role. So when AWS account B will assume this role, this is fine. That permission we have given with this trust relationship, but we have to assign some permission to access this bucket. So what we will go ahead and we will go here, permission, and then add permission, and then create inline policies. And under JSON, we have to create the inline policy. So let's create it. So this is the policy. So what we are saying, we give this particular role permission to S3 get object and S3 list bucket, and the resource is our bucket. So this is my bucket. That's fine. Now do remember that we have to give here the bucket name, as well as inside the bucket whatever we want to use, we have to give it as a wildcard entry. Otherwise this will not work. So that's fine, and we will review this policy. We have to give a name, then create policy. Now we see that this policy is attached to the role, and inside this policy we see the one that permission we have given to access bucket, and trust relationship is again the account. So we have this role created. Now we go to account B and create instance profile role. So I'm inside account B, and we go to IAM first, and with that IAM we go to role and we create a role. And for this account B, we have to create an instance profile role. That means the service is EC2. We select EC2. Next, permission policy right now, let's leave it out. Next, what we can see here that this role can be assumed by EC2, AmazonAWS.com. This is fine, and we give this role a name and a tag and create the role. We search this role again, go inside this role, and we see that the trust relationship is EC2 Amazon.com, but permission. Now if we see the picture here, in this particular instance profile role, it will be assumed by EC2 instance, but we have to give one permission that it can assume account A role as well. So for that, we have to give permission to account B role that it can assume the role of account A. So for that, we have to create one policy. So we go back to account B, but before that, we just copy the role ARN of account A. So we go to account A, and this is the role ARN we will copy, and we go to account B and create and give permission to account B role to assume this one. I'm inside account B now, and we add permission, create inline policy. We go directly to JSON, and this is very simple. We will allow this particular role to assume our account A role. This is fine. So this is the simple statement that we have to give to this role. And we review the policy, give a policy a name, and create policy. So we see that our instance profile role have a policy to assume account A role with a trust relationship that EC2 can assume this role as well. So this is clear. So right now what we have done, we have created a role with bucket policy. We have also created another role in account B with EC2 instance trust relationship. We then assume the role for account A. Now what we will do, we will go ahead and spin up one EC2 instance and attach the instance profile role to the EC2 instance. And from that EC2 instance, we will do some AWS CLI command to grab S3 object. So right now, let's spin up a couple of EC2 instances, or maybe one EC2 instance, sorry. We go back to account B and spin up EC2 instance. We go to EC2 instances, launch instance, give a name, then Amazon Linux is fine. Right now, I don't need any key pair. All settings are default. And what I will do, I will select number of instances as 1, and on advanced details, I will select the instance profile role that we have created. This one, EC2 instance profile role. We will verify once more. Yes, this is the role, EC2 instance profile role, and it has a trust relationship with EC2 and a permission to assume the role on account pay. I think the policy name, I have done some mistake. Plus, do check the policy name and give it as EC2 instead of EC. Okay. That's fine. Now we launch this instance. Our instance is launched and we see in the management console it is still in pending. Wait for some time. Now we see our instance is currently running and we go in and we check the IAM profile. It is attached, instance profile is attached, and we go inside the EC2 instance right now with selecting connect. You can select whatever your preferred way with session manager, SSH client. I will select directly with EC2 instance connect, and right now I am inside my EC2 instance. But remember, if we do AWS S3 LS right now, it will show me nothing. We have to do some modification. So what modification we have to do? Let me show you. Now, right now, if we do AWS S3 LS and then give this S3 bucket name, this is my bucket name in other account, right? So this is my bucket name in other account, and if I do like this right now, it will show me an error which is showing like access denied error. So this is why I have mentioned that we have to do some modification. Let me explain why it is doing like this. So right now AWS instance has an instance profile role, and that instance profile role is actually going to account A, and it is asking permission. But remember, so the instance profile role is actually going to account A and asking for permission, but this is not the case. So account A permitted the role of account B, not the instance profile role, to access this S3 bucket, right? So what we have to do, we have to mention while going and access this S3 bucket that to the EC2 instance that, hey, you go with this particular profile name or role name. So the profile name is very important. We have to mention the profile name, otherwise it will go its own way. So how to mention the profile name? So what we have to do, we have to check a couple of things here. We have to check if the AWS credentials profile is exist or not. So to check that, we have this command. We have to select our AWS AWS folder, and let's check if it is available or not. So it seems it is not available. So what we have to do, we have to create it, and then the same folder. So the folder is created, we go inside of it, and right now I am inside the folder. And what we have to do, we have to create a file name called config. We have to open the file, and within this file we have to create one profile. Give a name as you like. I am giving EC2 profile, and we have to give the role ARN that it will assume. So for me, the role ARN I will copy. This is the role ARM, it will assume. Okay, so this is the whole part where we have to specify the role ARM and we have to specify from where the credentials will be taken. So the credentials will be taken from EC2 instance metadata. So that's all. We have to save it and exit. We can just check it once. And it exists. Now we have to check. We will check if at all it is ineffective or not. So for that we have this command. So we have to we are just giving this STS get caller identity, and within that we will be able to identify which is getting called. And this is my account where it is showing that if we call this profile, it will assume this particular role. We see this is the role that we wanted to assume. Now everything is fine. Now let's check if our S3 command is working or not. For that, I will just copy it again, paste, and remember this time what we will give the profile name as well. I hope this will work. Now let's hit enter. Okay, great. We see that we can access the bucket right now, and it is showing me inside this bucket that we have this object. Great. So this is we can do. Now my EC2 instance is taking up this instance profile role, which have a profile to assume account A role, and then account A role is going to S3 bucket and accessing the bucket content. Now if we see the bucket policy once more, we see that inside that permission, we see that the get object, it can the list bucket and get object it can do. Now what we can do is we want to copy. Suppose we want to copy this particular PNG to our local machine. So what we can do is we can just give the same command with cp. So it will be more or less same. What we have to do, we have to specify the object as well here, like this, and then I will copy the object name, paste it, and without AWS S3 ls, what we have to do, we have to give cp. So I am telling AWS S3 copy this particular thing from S3 to where, to my current directory. So dot means current directory. So we will run this and we will check the output. That's done, it's downloaded. Now if we see, if we do ls, we see that config and CLI, this is the config we have created, and this is the one that we wanted, and it is already copied. So EC2 instance, from one account it went to another account. So account B EC2 instance went to account A, and it copied the S3 bucket content to account B. So this is a very nice use case, and I know a lot of you have already used it, and you want to use it. So you can go ahead and use this mechanism, and let me know if that worked for you. Now the last part of this video is that I want to apply a bucket policy where I will allow the EC2 instance to grab the objects out of this bucket, and one time I will deny the EC2 instance and do not permit the EC2 instance to grab the object out of this S3 bucket. Why this is needed? To fine grain the control. So suppose you have opened your bucket for all over world, and you might not know it that you have done that, but bucket policy is very much needed if you want to fine grain your control. So you give the allow policy or you give the deny policy, and then ultimately the deny policy will come into effect, because deny policy has higher priority than allow policy. So let's go into our console or the bucket where our bucket is, and create the policy and see the action there. Now here is my bucket policy, where the statement is saying deny everything on S3, on every S3 action for this particular bucket and inside the content of the bucket. where the string equals where it shows the role is coming like this. So if account B is coming with this particular account B is coming to access this bucket, it will have to assume this particular role, and when this role is coming to grab this bucket object, so the string equals does that, and then I am saying that deny that. So I will apply the bucket policy now, and the bucket policy is applied. Now let's check out if we can access this bucket object anymore or not. I will not do copy, I will only do ls. Okay, the role, this is not the correct role. I think we have to give the role this one. This is for another one that I have created earlier, so I did not change it, sorry. What I will do is I will edit, and I am going to change this role. Damn you, role. Okay, this role. So if this role comes and try to grab the bucket object, and then it will be denied. So I will save it. Right now the role is okay. Now let's try again. I hope this will be okay now. Okay, we see that right now access is denied. An error occurred and access is denied. So that means this bucket policy comes into picture. So the bucket policy tells me if this role comes and try to get the object, kindly deny it. What we can do if we want to just revert it back, we simply can delete the policy, or we can edit the policy and we simply say allow. This will allow again the role to access the bucket object. Now we go ahead and again do the same, and this time we can see the object. This time the object is visible. So in a nutshell, I think we have seen how can we access an S3 bucket from another EC2 instance with assume role capability. I hope you have enjoyed this video and you have learned something out of it. If you really like this video, kindly do share, comment your thoughts and subscribe. I will be here with another part of the series where we will access the S3 bucket with Lambda from another account. Till then, take care and goodbye.